This is episode 80 of the Prepper Website Podcast. Today's articles are 10 Ways to Find Simplicity on the Homestead, Letters from Venezuela. This is what life is really like in a post-collapse society, and Raw, Protecting Your Family When the Bad Guys Come Down Your Street, Part 1. Hey, I'm Todd Sepulveda, the editor of PrepperWebsite.com. This podcast is an audible version with some commentary of articles that have been posted on Prepper Website, a daily aggregator of preparedness information. These articles are some of the best that have been recently posted on PrepperWebsite.com. All article links and show information can be found on the PrepperWebsitePodcast.com. Hey, yesterday when I was doing my final edits and uploading, I don't know how I didn't catch it before, but when I finished uploading and I did my final check before I pressed submit, I realized I was saying episode 78. So I realized that was episode 79. There was a little bit of a reason for that. It was a late evening. Today's a late evening as well. Yesterday we went over to my parents' house to spend a little bit of time with my dad. He had surgery today, and so he had a triple bypass. So they were at the hospital like at 5:15 in the morning. We got there, he went into surgery, pretty early, around 8:15, 8:30. Got out. By the time I left, his eyes were open. He was talking. Eating a little bit of ice chips. We were joking and laughing and all that, thanking the good Lord. We did a lot of prayer. We definitely thank God for medical science and doctors and nurses and all that good stuff and medicine, but we know that the Lord is the one who has our lives in his hands, and so a lot of prayers went forward there. So it was a late night last night, and this is even a later night while I'm sitting here doing this, getting ready for the podcast and putting it out there. But he starts to get, you start to think about all the advantages that we have in our society today and how blessed we are to do something like that. I was talking to Dad. I'm like, hey, when did you knock out? And he said, he was in the operating room. I had made a mention that there were so many screens in ICU, and he'll be in there for 2 days. I mean, he still has 2 tubes in his, coming out of his chest. I just mentioned to him, man, you got a lot of monitors here. You got like 5 or 6 screens. And he said there were even more in the operating room. It was like it was so modern looking. There was like 15 monitors all over the place. There was wires all over the place. And, he goes, I even put myself on the operating table, and then, from there the anesthesiologist takes over and, knocks you out. But he goes, I was able to look around that operating room. It was pretty crazy. You start to think about how blessed you are, and then what life would be like if there was a collapse situation, if there was an SHTF situation, simple things like that. I mean, we have modern miracles where we're able to do these things and go in and bypass arteries and things like that. He actually had a little miracle before the doctor said, by all accounts, you should have already had a heart attack. But, you have a strong heart. There's no damage. The heart had actually kind of bypassed itself. So, had kind of made a bypass. And so that's a miracle in itself. The doctor said he had really never seen anything like that, before. But, Tuesday he'd gone in just for, they were going to do like an angioplasty, or to see if they could do an angioplasty, and they realized that there was a little bit more blockage than they thought, and so they had to go ahead and go in. So he's going to have some recovery time, but he's strong. He's going to go ahead and take care of that. While we were sitting there, I totally realized that I could be having a totally different conversation with you. I probably wouldn't even be having a conversation. I just wouldn't have done a podcast tonight. But I could definitely be having a whole totally different conversation with you. That's how, life and death it just seems to happen. And I would be having my own, and my mom would be having her own, and our family would be having our own SHTF situation. while we were there was a family who, who did experience a loss. I mean, I don't know the specifics, but I know it was an older man. He was crying, and I guess it was his sons who were surrounding him, and they had gone into a little private room. But somebody lost their life today. And so that's something to always think about, how precious life is and what you have. And so anyway, you can kind of do a whole podcast on that, and don't want to prolong too much on that. Just and be grateful for what we have and the time that we have, and the things that we can do. We just don't want to just mess that around and not really make our lives count. So, I do want to mention the Prepper Bundle. It's still going on. It's only going to be going on for like 4 more days. The countdown is on. So 4 more days, and then it's off. I think I shared that last time. For $29.97, there's 27 ebooks on a whole wide range of preparedness topics. There's 3 e-courses and videos. And you also get some bonus offers, attached onto that. So for $29.97, you can have a nice little preparedness library downloaded down into a flash drive, or wherever you want that. One thing that I think is pretty cool about the preparedness bundle is that every bundle that's sold, $1 goes to the Sinise Foundation. So they do donate to veterans. And so $1 goes this time around. This bundle, they've picked the Gary Sinise Foundation, and so they send it off that way. So that's a good support, knowing that you're getting the e-bundle, but a little bit is going towards that. So a little blessing there. So I will be linking to that. I am an affiliate for that. I also have a little ebook in there as well. In the Prepper Bundle, but I will be linking to that on episode 80, and definitely again putting it on Prepper website later on this weekend. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I do have some really good articles for you today. This one, our first one, comes to us from CountryAcresHomestead.com, and this article is entitled 10 Ways to Find Simplicity on the Homestead. And so it's not just homestead related, it's really organizational related as well, and things that you can implement into your life, even if you're not on a homestead, but whatever you're preparing out there, want to be self-reliant, things that will be definitely helpful. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on this one. It's pretty ironic. We moved to the homestead so we could live the simple life, and I have to tell you, it's been anything but simple. We've been dodging roadblocks and jumping hurdles from the very first day we moved in. From living without full electricity and no running water to finding we just don't have the financial means to do all the things we planned on doing in our first few months here. Our days are crazy long and sometimes ridiculously disorganized. It would be very easy for us to throw our hands in the air and say, that's it. Homestead wins, we give up. But Homesteader Hubby and I have never given up very easily, and when we work together as a team, we don't usually end up needing to give up. The struggle is real, folks. There are many days that I do throw my hands up in the air and say I'm going to quit, but my family knows that I don't mean it. I tend to say those things out of frustration, but once I collect myself and pull my big girl panties up, we get back to business and we work it out. I'm learning, though, that it isn't the homestead that is making my life so difficult, but instead it's my way of organizing or not organizing my time here on the homestead. So I've started working on these 10 ways to help my whole family find the simplicity we are looking for here on the homestead. First one would be, don't wait until tomorrow. I'm a procrastinator. I tend to put everything off until the last minute, and then I find myself overwhelmed, stressed out, frustrated, and drained. It's not pretty for anyone. Every evening after dinner is over, I do a few things to get me started on the next day's work. This helps me to stay on top of things, and I've noticed that my mornings are running smoother, and because my mornings run smoother, so does the rest of my day. So defrost tomorrow's dinner. Check to make sure that any kiddos that were given responsibilities did those responsibilities. Look over that day's to-do list and any items that weren't checked off. See if they can be done quick or can they be carried over to the following day's list? I've learned not to leave these things behind or they won't ever get done. And create tomorrow's to-do list. I just want to, that's a strategy that's so important, even as a teacher. I noticed early on when I took time to set up my week as far as my lesson plans and kind of set out my worksheets that I was going to be using and my activities and my materials and have those all, laid out on my counter ready to go, that my days just went so much smoother. I was able to come in and get my day, focus, greet the students as they came into the classroom and get going, as opposed to running around trying to find everything I needed. So that's definitely a strategy that you can put into place, every single evening as things start to wind down, start looking towards the next day. All right, moving on. Get my tushy out of bed. Who knew the day would come when sleeping until 8 a.m. would be considered sleeping in? Believe me, I'd much rather stay snuggled in bed spooning with homesteader hubby, but if I do that too often, I won't get any work done. And as much as I love to spoon with the homesteader, I also really love my quiet mornings. If I get up a few hours before everyone else, I have the time to sit in quiet prayer with the Lord, look over, and get started on my daily to-do list and work on my business without interruption. Quiet time is a rare commodity in a home with 6 children, and I've learned I need to grab it when I can. Create our monthly meal plan. We have a master meal list. This includes all the meals our family enjoys for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The first Monday of every month, I sit down and plan out our meals for the entire month. This has helped me tremendously in so many different ways. No longer do I stand in front of my freezer scratching my head over what we're going to have for dinner. I don't forget that I'm supposed to actually make all those healthy meals I want my family to eat. It helps me to keep inventory of what is in our freezer, refrigerator, and pantry. I'm also able to save money because I create my meal plans by what we purchased at the store that was on sale. I'm not rushing out to buy pizza because I forgot to get dinner out of the freezer. We aren't blowing through boxes of cereal anymore, and every night, regardless of how busy our day was, and even if it's eggs for dinner, we're sitting at the table together as a family celebrating our day. Each day has its own work. I was first introduced to this concept when I was homeschooling Homesteader Girl. We had done a unit study on Little House in the Big Woods. I had loved Little House on the Prairie when I was growing up. I still do. And I wanted to teach my oldest daughter what life had been like in the good old days. Ma Ingalls had work assigned to each day of the week, as I imagine most moms did back then. I decided to give it a try, and it really has simplified my life. Monday, laundry, office work. This is the day I create my meal plans, schedules, pay bills, etc. Tuesday, kitchen, dining room, living room, bathroom. Kids do the dining rooms and the living room. Wednesday, baking, prep work for meals, etc. Thursday, focus on my business day. And Friday, catch-up day. Plan out the week. Oh boy, does this make my week slide by just a little easier. The homesteader and I sit down each Sunday evening and go over the big projects he'd like to tackle throughout the week. By me knowing what he may need my help with, or if he'll be away from the homestead for more than just a few hours, I can plan the easy meals for those crazy long days. I also know if I need to rearrange my work schedule so we can get those bigger projects taken care of quicker. Keeping my home straightened throughout the week. My mom always told me that cleaning a clean home is quicker and easier, and she was absolutely correct. It's not always the easiest goal to accomplish, but I'm a real stickler about everyone pitching in and doing their part around here. If my kiddos make a mess, they are expected to clean up after themselves. I have no problem serving my family as the Lord has called me to do, but I also expect that my family pitch in and pull their own weight. It is so much easier to package up meat for the freezer if I don't have to declutter the counter first. Our family is a team. Everyone in our home has their own responsibilities, but we do tackle many of our tasks together. If it's our big cleaning day, then everyone pitches in to dust, sweep, vacuum, etc. Each person knows who is responsible for the kitty litter, brooder, feeding the animals, etc. If the homesteader needs help finishing up the chicken tractor, building the well house, or any other big projects he's working on, we pitch in and help. I may only offer moral support and suggestions, but I'm still helping. Getting organized. Hands down, this is the one area that helped me simplify things the most. Everything in our home has its place. No one has to dig for cooking utensils or wander around aimlessly looking for their car keys. Before we moved here, we decluttered and minimized everything down to what we absolutely needed. So organization should have been pretty easy for us. I put it off for a long time and things got a little out of control. Delegate tasks and responsibility to kiddos. When I'm feeling overwhelmed and bogged down, it's typical because I'm taking on way more than what the Lord expects of me. There is a lot of work that needs to be done on the homestead, and there is no way that one single person could be expected to do it all. There are many days when we get busy working on a bigger project outside, and the inside gets pushed until later in the day, or even to another day completely. When that happens, I've learned that my little people can tend to the dishes and regular cleanup, and my oldest daughter can tend to dinner. Take a day to rest. God gave us a day of rest for a reason. He knows that our bodies and souls get weary and tired, and He has provided us time to slow down and take a breather. For me, that is usually on a Sunday, but the Lord has a way of sneaking in times of rest during the day as well. Today was an example of that. Hubby knew I had a lot on my plate today, and he could see I was getting overwhelmed. When I was presented with the opportunity to go for a walk with him, I took it. Those 10 minutes away from the house and the work that needed to be done here made my heart just a little more calm. Enjoy the simple pleasures that we are blessed with. Sometimes I really fail in this area because I get stressed out about all the work I should be doing, but God is working on my heart. He's reminding me of why we moved here in the first place. One thing I really looked forward to when moving to the homestead was being able to sit on the front porch with homesteader hubby and just relax. I haven't enjoyed this nearly as much as I would like, but it is on the top of my to-do list right now. The Lord has blessed me with the simple pleasures of sitting with my family each night for dinner, the pleasure of watching my children run freely on the homestead, to just sit and read about some topic that has struck my interest, and I'm going to embrace every second of those simple moments in my life. So a lot of good advice here. I love the idea of the planning, the meal plan for the month. When my wife and I ran a group home for kids in CPS custody, we did that for about 11 and a half years. We ran a therapeutic residential treatment model, a therapeutic foster group home. And we did that for about 11 and a half years before I got into education. And we did that. We planned out a whole month. And, we went to the grocery store and we had that. So we didn't always stick to that day. We moved things around, but we had everything, that we would need for that month, in the house. And so that was so important, to be able to do that. But a lot of other things, making sure that everything has a place, everything is just simplified and being able to handle that. I like the idea of certain days mean certain things. That this is going to be the day where I pay my bills. This is going to be the day where, I clean this part of the house. This is going to be a day when I do this. I really like that. So a lot of good advice there. Hopefully, you can go check out this article at countryacreshomestead.com and go read a little bit about what they're doing over there, and because there's a lot of articles over there that you can go check out. All right, so good stuff. All right, let's go in. I believe too. There's just a lot of links over on the right hand side, articles. I've been wanting to do that with Ed That Matters. I just haven't done that. But articles on the right hand side and then links in the middle. Like even if you wanted to make your own pizza, when she was talking about pizza, she's got a link for that. So go check that out. All right, our next article comes to us from the Organic Prepper, Daisy over there. Has a really cool article. Somebody that she knows, or an acquaintance, and maybe it was on Facebook, or some other way, maybe a reader to her website, sent her a letter from Venezuela about what she's experiencing. She's a young mom, and what life is really like in Venezuela right now, and so kind of eye-opening of what is actually happening over there. So this, again, organicprepper.ca. theorganicprepper.ca, and CA stands for Canada if you're not familiar with that. Again, the article is Letters from Venezuela. This is what life is really like in a post-collapse society. Daisy does say, this letter that was written, the person's first language is going to be Spanish, and so I think she does a good job for English as a second language writing the letter, but there are some grammatical mistakes and things like that, and some verbiage that's not that doesn't line up. So I'll try my best to kind of fix that, but some of it's just going to come through. All right, let's get started on this one. If you've ever wondered what life was really like in a post-collapse society, look no further than Venezuela. Today, I'd like to share a first-hand report of everyday life there. The country has been on the way down since a socialist government destroyed the economy. Here's a quick timeline. Private ownership of guns was banned in 2012. Then things began to go downhill in a hurry. In 2013, preppers were relabeled hoarders, and the act of stocking up became illegal. In 2014, the government instituted a fingerprint registry for those who wished to buy food to ensure they didn't take more than their share. In 2015, things began to devolve more quickly as electricity began to be rationed and farmers were forced to turn over their harvest to the government. 2016 brought the announcement that folks were on their own. There was simply not enough food. As well, despite the rationing, an electricity shortage was announced. 2016 also brought the news that the country was out of everything: food, medicine, and nearly all basic necessities. People were dying of starvation, and malnourishment made other illnesses even worse. Hyperinflation brought exorbitant prices, like $150 for a dozen eggs. Now, civil war is near, if not already happening. They're calling it, quote-unquote, protest, but violence between the people and the government is ongoing. This rage is stoked by wealthy Venezuelans who enjoy luxurious meals, fabulous parties, and lush accommodations while the rest of the country struggles to find a bag of rice they can afford. Let them eat cake. It appears there is no end in sight to the tribulations of the Venezuelans. So what is day-to-day life like for the average Venezuelan? A reader from Venezuela took the time to comment and tell us what life is really like there. You can find her story below. I've edited for spacing to make them easier to read, but please keep in mind that English is a second language. Alright, so let's go ahead and start reading this one. Daisy, thank you so much for this content. I'm a Venezuelan mom of a 1-year-old baby, and we are living a war here. You can't go outside to buy food or supplies or medication because each activity is a high risk and more with a baby. So I stay home as much as I can. There are a lot of people outside trying to live normally, trying to go to work and buy food and continue their lives. But when you are working or whatever thing you're doing, you don't know if you will be able to come back home safe. People continue to work to get whatever miserable pay to buy some food. Everything is so expensive. Perhaps the beans and rice are affordable but still not cheap, and it's so hard to find food. Options are limited because of the price. You can only buy one item or two of pasta. Rice, like I say, the less expensive food, you have to wait in long lines at your own risk because there are a lot of fights in the store. Imagine tons of people wanting to buy the same product. This has been being worse since perhaps about 5 years now because of scarcity. Malls and big stores are basically alone because there are places where colectivos used to attack with bombs, and there is a group of about 40 men in motorcycles that have been creating chaos in the whole city. Every day they take the city. Every day the city, they have plenty of arms, and they just go through the city shooting buildings, houses, stealing stores, people on the streets, batteries of cars, everything they want. This situation is far worse than we ever imagined. They kill people every day, and they are paid mercenaries from the government because no one does nothing. The government people is also killing innocents, kids, teenagers, youth. We are panicking. We bought a land 3 years ago. I got pregnant and we decided to wait. The land is a safe zone, but is 5 hours from here. It's a very small town, 11,000 people. I live in a city with about 3 million people. At least for now, the towns are peaceful, but there isn't electricity, and there isn't an asphalt road, so this doesn't sound lovely for thieves that are now looking for bigger fish to catch. According to our neighbors, the town is in calm. Nothing has happened. We need to go as soon as possible. I am scared because what you say is also true. But in the city, there are no options. And just let me stop there. What Daisy is referring to is she's referring to information that Selco and Fernando Aguirre have mentioned about during the collapses that people out in the country, they were raped. There was nobody there to be able to help. If you owned your farm or whatever, it was just you and your family, and so it was easy for people to come and do harm to you, kill you, steal whatever, and rape and take all your stuff. So what Fernando and Selco what they espouse is that being in a city with people, you have a little bit better opportunities to protect each other and to band together. So when she says that, she's referring to that because Daisy's recently wrote an article on that, has talked about that a couple of times. Actually, she's written a couple of articles on that. So again, I'm scared because of what you say is also true. But in the city, there are no options, at least not now. What do you think we should do? I really appreciate what you recommend. I'm sorry for my bad English. I'm trying to write this while playing with my baby. Venezuelan houses are already bunkers. This has been like this ever since I can remember, perhaps 20 years. Every regular house is made like bunkers, pure concrete from the bottom to the walls to everything. Every house has also 2 to 3 security doors, really big and heavy ones, and on top of that we have fences and electric fences on top of big gates. And trust me, is not enough to be safe. The army has damaged gates and has entry to different houses looking for students or rebels, and also innocents. People has died because they were sadly in the middle of this event. I don't doubt that Countryland might have problems too, but so far cities are just pure anarchy and madness. There are several groups creating chaos: the army, the mercenaries, the thieves, and the rebels that want to kill Chavismos and politicians or politics and whatever on their way. A few days they put a bomb into a propane gas distribution cargo, and it blew away, and this is affecting every single thing. Again, guys, I apologize for the way it's reading. I'm trying to self-correct, but it's still hard. They still cargo transporting food or gas and even fuel, so there's no much to do now. Communities in the city are not organized since they really need to find food and basic resources, so each individual is waiting in long lines to buy bread or medicine or whatever they need, and people don't want to organize. They don't see this could go like this for years. I assume that we got used to live in some sort of chaos and violence. That's pretty sad when things have just, you've gotten used to this is the way it is, right? But the truth is more people is praying and just wishing this will pass soon, that this will pass as the moment a new president arrives. And what if it doesn't? Let's be clear that we have so many resources and Canada and USA are pulling all of the gold and all minerals now, so no country really matters what we are suffering as long as they can get their way. We really feel hopeless. So I guess the common idea of the U.S. Over there, and it's probably more coming from the government, is that the United States is all they're doing is just harming. All they want is to suck their resources out, which is really it's the rich people over there sucking the resources out and allowing people to just kind of kill themselves. What's sad is that there shouldn't be. Venezuela is a tropical area, there should be no lack of food. I mean, every home should be growing something, and being able to grow some kind of vegetables and crops and fruit and stuff. All right, so Daisy responds a little bit here to her. Dear Ale, thank you for sharing your story. Here's my advice. If you can safely get out of the city, the time to do it is now. When I said I was moving from the country into town, the move was not to a major city with millions of people, but a much smaller one. I went from living a mile from my neighbors to a suburban neighborhood where we chat over the fence and share fresh vegetables and barbecues. In a small town like you describe, you will have neighbors, hopefully some unity, and be able to be more self-reliant without as much risk as the place where you live now. Being on your own with a small child in a situation like this is hard and dangerous. Try to make friends so that you have some support. If you have extended family, consider that relocating to them might be another option. The journey will be difficult, but I sincerely hope that you will be able to get there with your baby and find some peace and safety. Please know that you and your child will be in many hearts and prayers after this. Keep us posted if you can. Love, Daisy. So there's quite a bit of comments here. I didn't count how many there were, but I stopped kind of going down. Some people are like, the situation in Venezuela has been going on for years. Why did you get pregnant? Why not use contraception? Well, some of the first things to go were like diapers and tampons and toilet paper. And so, you're not going to have stuff like contraception over there. You could, not have sex, but that's not going to happen, right? You have, people over there, and you have no hope, and you have no, and someone does, I was glad, because when I read that comment, I was like, man, who would say that? Come on, you're not thinking. But somebody did respond to it. But, when you're like that, there's nothing else to do. You're not going out spending a lot of time outside and those kinds of things. You're going to spend, time with each other, and things are going to, lead from one thing to another, and just you're not careful and you get pregnant. And so that's kind of where you're at. And so a lot of things to consider here, when things are going on. Definitely, even if you think about this situation, right? I mean, it's been going on like 5 years, she said. Even if you did prepare, even if you had food storage, you had food storage for 6 months, you had food storage for a year. Let's just say you were like one of those very rare preppers that has 2 years of food storage, or even 5 years of food storage. You've gone through all that. And so, you're going to be in the same situation as everybody else. And so what would you do at that point? That's why, we always talk about that, whatever you have eventually is going to run out. That's why you want to have skills. And so I'm hoping that those people out in the country are gardening, are even people that are in the cities, if they have a little plot of land, or even if they have some, containers that they're able to garden a little bit and get something out of that. That would be so helpful, right? So hopefully that's going on, but it's sad to think about that. In a modern day society right now, that this kind of stuff is happening in Venezuela. There was a guy that was married to a girl from Venezuela not too long ago. In the previous church that I pastored, and we would talk about it. And this was back in the day before things got really, really bad. Her parents were actually educators and had retired and had moved to the United States, and they would go every so often to withdraw their retirement. But I think for a while, towards the end, I think they were trying to sell their property so that they could just kind of, when they went to go get their retirement, they would, fly in, get their retirement, or get a hotel, whatever, get their retirement and come right back. Because just, America was just so much different. And so, I don't know how all that went, how all that was going down or whatever, but I bet you, that they're not going to Venezuela anymore. Definitely not. The money is not worth anything. All right, so going from that article to one from the Prepper Journal. On Fridays I try to pick an article from the archives, and this one kind of caught my attention as I was kind of going through the tag cloud, and it's from August 2013. So it's about 4 years old, just under 4 years old. And the title of it is Raw, or Without Rule of Law: Protecting Your Family When the Bad Guys Come Down Your Street. This is part one, and this is actually, a lot of the Prepper Journal right now. I mean, he's got a contest going on. People are submitting articles, that he's posting. This one was written by Pat over there, Patrick Henry, and I'm sure that is just a pen name. But this is part one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link to part two. I really like the things that he says in this one. I think you're going to like it as well. Some good stuff here. And so I'm going to link to part two in the show notes, so that for episode 80, so you can go check that one out. Well, I mean, you're going to want to check this one out too, but so you can go check part two out, and all the other ones as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get moving on this one. Again, Without Rule of Law: Protecting Your Family When Bad Guys Come Down Your Street, part one. I've been thinking about security a lot lately. I'm not sure why, but this is the latest thing that has been an ever-present thought as I go through my daily activities. I suppose it is a logical extension of prepping after food and water sources are shored up, and that your mind would turn to security. I started to analyze our defensive options at our home, since we have chosen to shelter in place should any type of disaster scenario happen. This carried me down several paths that I hope to discuss with you, and they all focus around steps you can take to keep your family safe or provide some additional protection in your home if things get really bad. This is the first post in a series about what problems you may be faced with in a raw or without rule of law society. This is a worst case scenario, but I believe that exercising your mind by thinking about issues like this could prepare you better for less catastrophic emergencies. Honestly, I hope to never be in a situation that requires these plans and methods, but I think it is valid to discuss them in terms of preparing your family. Bugging in is not a perfect solution either. To bug in and hunker down, or to bug out and take your chances on the road. This is one of the major questions, at least logistically, for preppers, and you will have people on both sides of the issue. Bugging out brings with it an entirely different set of circumstances and must be planned for in different ways. Hunkering down can eliminate one set of problems, but presents a whole new set of challenges. Further complicating the issue is that life gets a vote. Just because you make a decision now whenever everything is pretty much normal doesn't necessarily mean that circumstances won't change and cause your plans to need adjusting. In some cases, your carefully laid plans may need to be thrown out altogether. A lot of careful consideration usually goes into the decision to either hunker down or to bug out. I think that in no small part it comes down to your resources and your common sense when you are asking yourself these questions. First off, the obvious question: do you have a place to go to? If so, bugging out becomes much more realistic. The questions like how will you get there, what to take, and who else will be going with you start to get answered. The pieces begin to fall into place, and you can make a plan for dealing with the contingencies as you think of them. For a long trip, you can plan how to load the vehicles, where to refuel, storing caches of supplies along the route, alternative routes, etc. If you have no place to go and there is not an immediate life-threatening situation that is making you leave your home, if you have supplies such as food and water, then why leave? For a lot of people, absent some impending natural disaster, disease, nuclear accident, or chemical spill, staying where they are living currently is going to be the best option. You may have a support structure at your current location or family that prevents you from leaving. Even in war-torn cities, people stay behind, and this isn't without precedent historically. Bugging in would seem to me to be a logical choice in a lot of situations unless you have a fully stocked survival retreat within a few hours away or have friends and family to turn to within a relatively short distance. It may be the only choice you have if life steps in again and prevents you from implementing your bug-out plan above. Regardless of whether you choose to bug in as part of your plan to be fully prepared or are focused to stay where you are, you may have to deal with the unpleasant reality that usually rears its ugly head anytime there is turmoil or disasters. Humans can, on one hand, be incredibly loving and also incredibly evil, and after a disaster there are usually stories of both. In this article, I plan to talk about some steps you can take to protect your family from the latter type if you find yourself bugging in. The spectrum of people who could possibly be threats run the gambit from desperate beggars to organized gangs. Burglary and looting are crimes of opportunity. The opportunity for a burglar is usually an unsuspecting homeowner or a house that is easily broken into. Looting uses the opportunity of a situation in which the perceived enforcement of laws by police has dissolved. In times after time, we see situations like Hurricane Sandy where people were looting the day after the hurricane. Some of these people were even dressed like power company workers to fool anyone who saw them poking around houses. You can expect that regardless of where you live, if the crisis is bad enough and prolonged enough, there will be homes near you, maybe yours, that are targets for this segment of society. I think it is reasonable to assume if we routinely see this type of behavior with what is considered a relatively minor weather event, much worse could be expected as the level and intensity of the emergency increases. Right now, even with all the lights on, food and fuel still being shipped to stores, and the welfare and unemployment checks getting delivered, we have women who are gang raped in Chicago, veterans are beaten to death, and there are attacks and murders in every major city, it seems weekly. Can you imagine how bad this will get if we are plunged into total chaos? Can you foresee how completely dangerous your neighborhood might get if there is no rule of law? Staying in your home and bugging in may be the only option you have, but depending on how serious the disaster or crisis that we are going through, that home might have to be your castle and fortress. There are some steps we can take to give you an advantage if this is your Alamo and may keep you alive to see another day. Hopefully, we can, at a minimum, take steps to make your house a less ideal target and keep your family safer. There is no magic wand. With all that said, I want to be realistic with you. What I am going to suggest is not going to make your house bulletproof. It will not stop a tank or military assault or prevent a fire. It will probably not stop several determined people who have the time to attack unopposed either. But it could give you just enough of an advantage that it could save your life and hopefully make them look for an easier target. What I plan to highlight are several considerations that you can implement that are relatively easy, which can make it a little harder for people who want to get in and cause you harm or try and take what you have. This should offer some protection from the casual thief or looter, not necessarily the mutant zombie biker gang. I think it is also worth saying that if someone is intent on killing you or getting to you or your family, you have to consider what you are willing to do to stop them. I do not believe that it is realistic to expect bad people to simply go away because you talk sternly to them or get in touch with their pain they are feeling. If someone has made up their mind to get to you, the very least they will do is take what can either keep your family alive, like food, clothing, water, money, or safe, like security. If you are incredibly lucky, the only thing they will do is take your supplies. I don't think that it's realistic, though, and you may be in for a very horrible lesson if things get to that point. The lesson might end up costing you your life. We have talked about the use of deadly force in several other posts in various situations. I do believe that you owe it to yourself and your family to be mentally prepared to use deadly force in a situation like this if the need arises. If you have no plans to fight back, then you should be prepared to live or die with the consequences. I fully expect anyone in my family, and probably most who are reading this blog, to be open to, if not embracing, the same belief. I never want to harm I never want to have to harm anyone, but if you're in my house or property with intentions to harm my family, I will do what is necessary. Do I expect this is going to be easy or that it won't change me when it's over? No, but that is beside the point. I have sworn that I will do what is necessary to protect my family. That is one of the reasons I advocate carrying a concealed weapon, because violence like this doesn't wait for a disaster. It can happen any day. So, now, we have the framework. Bad things have happened. You are forced to stay in your house and try to ride out the storm, so to speak, and people are or could be trying to get into your house or get at your family. If it comes to that, you are prepared to use deadly force if necessary to stop them. Step 1. Gathering intelligence. First things first, before you even consider how you would begin the planning process of defending your home, it helps to know what is around you. By that, I mean understanding what is in the area immediately surrounding your home and expanding outward from there. Further out, I recommend periodically conducting what I call the neighborhood recon to familiarize yourself with what is going on in your neighborhood. I don't mean simply knowing your neighbors, although that is very important. What I mean is knowing how to get to your house by methods other than the surface roads. What are the landscape features that may help or work to your advantage? Knowing who has certain resources that may become targets will give you information that the looters who is driving through won't have. This can be as simple as taking walks through your neighborhood, but the key is to pay attention to details. Having area maps is another step you can take in planning defense and even exit strategies if the need arises. You can go online and order very detailed topographical maps from the USGS store. Knowing this information before you need it can show you paths of likely drift and avenues you can use to escape. Once you know what is around you, another prerequisite to any defensive strategy is intelligence. The first and perhaps most important piece of intelligence is knowing who is in the area. It is important to know as far in advance as possible when someone is headed to your position before they are actually at your door. For a lot of people, this would be difficult without a large group and training. If you live in an apartment complex, this article might not work for you. On the other hand, you may be able to use the other people in your apartment complex to form a network that can take turns watching activity and alerting anyone of an advancing threat. If you have a typical home, you do still have neighbors unless they are bugged out already. A security network would be even more advantageous in this situation, but I will discuss how that might be set up in another post. For this discussion, let's pretend you are mostly on your own. If we think about defense in rings around your home, where the first ring would be your home itself, going out from there would be your yard, and then going out from there maybe 2 houses or 200 feet in either direction. These rings would indicate where you have different methods of identifying and stopping the threats. Ideally, you would want to know that someone is coming as early as possible, so the outermost ring would demonstrate that distance. How would you be able to tell if someone was a few houses away and headed to your position, or who, at a minimum, was worthy of additional scrutiny? Assuming again that you are on your own, that you don't have any squad of Marines or a checkpoint at your disposal, you would optimally have a method of knowing what is going on all around your property. This usually requires a position that is elevated so you can see over houses and bushes. Without having to have a guard tower installed, one option could be a tree climbing stand, or my personal favorite, a kid's tree house. These can give you the ability to gain an advantage and see a large piece of the surrounding area. This may not be practical or possible, so your advance notice will need to be adjusted to the defensive ring that you can see. If you can only see your yard, then you greatly reduce the amount of head start notice you can have for this type of situation. It may also be that you must stay inside for quarantine or weather issues. A simple way to be alerted to approaching people is wireless motion detectors. Motion detectors outside can alert you to someone who shouldn't be there. Assuming that we are talking about a real crisis here, there is a high probability that the power won't be working. This is when having your own backup power would be extremely helpful, but there are other low-tech options you can deploy that work as well. If you have power and motion detectors at the perimeter, you will have advanced warning of someone who is entering your yard. Using this, you can run to where the threat is coming from and address it or at the very least, be ready to address it when they reach your home. Dakota Alert has systems designed for this exact purpose. There are also small trip wire devices that will pull a pin that triggers a 22 blank cartridge. These can easily be set up provided you have a blank 22 shell and can alert you audibly. You can set the wires up in the places that someone would most likely travel to, make it to your home, and when they go off, you would have advance warning that someone is approaching. There are other low-tech options too, like setting up a string of cans on the porch that can make noise once the line holding them has been disturbed, or crushing a light bulb so that you hear the glass break as someone walks on it. These are less ideal and probably work better in the movies and situations with complete darkness, but can work in some cases. The perfect system alerts you well in advance of when someone is near your home, but you do have to be able to hear it. Tomorrow we will talk about how you can prevent entry to your home and how to deal with attackers if they do make it inside. So again, there's 12 comments here, from 2013. So yeah, again, it's just under 4 years old. So you can go check those out. I'm hoping that maybe some of you will. Well, there is a May 15th, 2017 article. I guess I didn't see that one when I was scrolling down. I want to go back and read that one there in a little bit. But I really like this article and just kind of the way that Pat is laying it out there. The other, just to kind of pique your interest a little bit, the other article to give you some of the subheadings. Step 2, preventing access. I'm going to scroll down. Slowing access, reaction plan for distractions, taking the high ground, make a backdoor escape, live to fight another day. So again, good article here. I'm going to link to part 2 so that you can go check that one out. If this one has piqued your interest, you can go check that one out as well. So good stuff there. Like I said earlier this week, if I get to a situation where I am stuck here and we're bugging in, I'm going to immediately be rallying my neighborhood as much as possible. And so there's one aspect of being able to defend your home, but then when you have a group of people able to hold a neighborhood or hold a couple of blocks, and provide security that way, that's really, really powerful there. Another thing is that if you're always providing security, right, you're always being on the lookout, you're never able to, if you have a garden in your backyard, tend to the garden or to the chickens or whatever, unless you have a system like the Dakota system, or you have some early warning systems to be able to notify you. Another thing that would be helpful is if you had a drone, and you had a drone and a small solar system backup that you could, with batteries and all that, where you can charge the batteries, but you could send the drone up and do a little bit of recon that way. Drones are starting to get pretty cheap there, and they can fly for long distances. So my dad has a neighbor who has one that this guy. I mean, he's a techie guy, right? But Dad said that this drone went straight up so high, so fast that he couldn't see it. It was so high up there. And this one did have a video camera, so he could see that it was looking down on him, but he could see the whole neighborhood and even more because he was so high. So that's always that option to go that way. All right, so that's it for episode 80. If you get a chance, come by the website and drop us a comment. and we always appreciate those. And then share. We love it when people share out the podcast and send it to the episode, send it to social media, and get it out there and let other people know about that. If you get a chance, go check out the Prepper Bundle as well. Just go check it out. Do yourself a favor, go check it out, and go look at the books that are in there, the ebooks that that you would get, and the e-courses that are available when you do that. I'm going to be linking to that on the show notes. And remember that $1 of every bundle that's sold goes to the Gary Sinise Foundation. So they're hoping to raise a lot of money that way. And that's not the first time. They've been doing other things. So the Self-Reliant School, I know that they do other things for veterans. And so, that's, it's good to know that that's in the back of your head. All right. While they do that. So, hey, I hope you have a chance this week to, get out there and enjoy the weekend. I'm going to be spending some time with Dad up at the hospital, and doing Prepper website from the hospital and those kinds of things. So switching out with Mom one night. But so if you do, if you are a believer, appreciate your prayers and keep Dad in prayer. And I know there's a lot of other people out there who need prayer as well. So anyway, with that. Choose to live a more self-reliant life. Choose not to be so dependent on the government, grid, or the grind. Until next week, stay prepped and aware. Peace.